What was the biggest misconception that you had as a child? Underneath the floor of a building was just an endless void. I thought people who replaced floors were incredibly brave, so I always told my parents I wanted to replace floors. I thought having a job was just you picking a company you like. Waltz in, find an empty spot, and start doing something. I had no concept of interviews, tests, and all the paperwork involved. I thought a potluck was where everyone brought food to a party and put it all in one giant pot. Then you would scoop out a plateful, and whatever you got was your luck. I thought being fired from work meant that the fired person gets killed. Every time my mom would tell me and my sisters not to bother her, or she could get fired from work. She partially worked from home. I assumed that her boss would come into her office and literally shoot her. I was so terrified that my mom would get in any trouble at work. That people of other races just had different levels of being tanned. Found out in the mall that I was wrong. All that you needed to do to get pregnant was get married. My mom always told me that if I got lost or separated from her while out in public and couldn't find a police officer, I should seek out the nearest woman with children. Her reasoning was obviously that another mother would be a good kind of stranger to talk to, or much more likely to help and less likely to harm a lost child. My reasoning, however, was that if I somehow never found my own mom again, I could and would just go home with the woman and have new siblings to play with, so I wouldn't get lonely. If you missed an exit on the highway, you would basically end up in a different state. I would bury coins in my backyard so I could dig them up next year and be rich, because buried treasure. My parents weren't raised in the US, but they tried to make sure my siblings and I got the whole American experience, so they tried introducing us to Christmas and even sent us to Christian summer camps. For some reason, this caused a sort of confusion in my mind, and I thought Santa was God, and I was never corrected because my parents didn't understand Christianity or Christmas. Down syndrome was when you were really sad. I thought you could say something like, "Looks like you got a case of Down syndrome" to your crying friend. For whatever reason, I always thought limes were just unripe lemons. When I was in my early 20s, I went to buy a lemon tree and was so confused to see that had lime and lemon trees. I feel like an idiot every time I think of it. That there was absolutely no way I'd ever get to be as old as the adults in my life. For some reason it seemed more likely to me that I could become a dog than that I could age into even a 15-year-old. That my dad just always knew the way. On vacation, in unfamiliar cities, everywhere, I learned about maps and reading road signs later. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the gold. Edit 2. Spelling. The moon is chasing US. My aunt convinced me for a full year that a place known as Wally World's Chapstick Emporium existed. A year later, I asked my mom if I could go to Wally World's Chapstick Emporium. She said, "What's that?" And I said my aunt told me about it. Come to find out, it was just Walmart. I thought that if I tilted my head to one side for a picture, it made me look exy. God knows what I thought exy meant back then. But it was only something naughty girls did. So I would wait until right before the pic was taken, and then quickly tilt my head right as the shutter went off. That everyone I ever heard about was from my country. Eminem, French. The Pope, French. The Rolling Stones, French. Of course. Elizabeth II. Congrats. You're now the Queen of France. People actually died in movies. That adults were mature, responsible, and not afraid of anything. Also, that I was destined for greatness. That ship sailed decades ago. I thought that men had two separate sacks for their testicles. When I gave my first hand job, I thought my BF had an accident and then had them sewn together. Personally, I blame all the penis graffiti. Shot led me to believe that's what they looked like. That trees made wind. Trees would move, and their movement makes the wind. I honestly love that I used to believe this. It's so innocent. Also, That if you saw the clouds move it was actually the world spinning. As in the clouds would stay still. And world was turning. Though people hid inside atoms and gave people the money. That mountains grew. 'Cause my dad joked, dad said Table Mountain was just knee height when he was a boy. You could get pregnant by kissing. I just never knew raisins came from grapes. Found out age 18 and my mom was like, I'm sure I told you. But my sister also didn't know, so it's debatable. My ex GF and her sister had hypothesized that male underwear have bigger, stronger waistbands because it needs to be able to support the balls like bras holding boobs. All dogs were males. All cats were females. Chicago was in China. In the song that goes, I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus, I straight up thought that the kid caught the mom cheating on their dad, lol. Gas cost like $2 in total. Movie tickets cost hundreds of dollars. Black people couldn't get sunburned. If you use too much conditioner all your hair will fall out. The first time people kissed was when they got married. I thought adults couldn't run because I've never saw my parents running. One of my female friends from high school was convinced that a penis rides around like a water hose upon ejaculation. I thought drinking and driving meant having any beverage in a vehicle. Had no clue about alcohol. In kindergarten I reported my mom for drinking and driving in the middle of a school assembly, and they called her in for a meeting. Everyone thought it was hilarious, but no one corrected me or taught me what it really meant, and I think it was like 6th or 7th grade before it all clicked. I thought a male could only give to kids as they have 2 testicles, and that in the process of impregnating a woman, the testicles would explode. Cute one. I thought bunnies and rabbits were different. I thought bunnies were only white, and rabbits were all the other colors. Dumb one. When I learned about gay acts between men existing, I assumed it was done by one penis stretching out from the pee hole to accept the other penis. In my defense, I had only just grasped the concept of needing to stick a penis somewhere for it to be X. So that's the first hole I thought of. Edit. Yes. When I saw that office scene where Dwight thought something similar, I laughed really ducking hard and immediately told my dad, who was the person who corrected me, and we had a good laugh about it. I thought you got a girl pregnant by peeing inside of her until I was like 12. I was talking with an older friend and somehow we started talking about X. And because I wanted to sound like I knew what I was talking about, I said something about peeing in her to get her pregnant. He looks at me dumbfounded and says that's not how it works at all. That there is an age where you will figure it out. There is nothing to figure out. Just do what you love. Grow to be a better person. Don't be a stick. And wash your hands. The older you get, the more fingers you will grow. Also, women lay an egg each month, but it can take them by surprise. So restaurants have paper bags for women to store their egg in. I thought all my friends' families were also rich and mine was so poor. Turns out my parents just decided to not go into a crapload of debt. My family wasn't rich by any means. We were solidly blue collar middle class. But my parents were smart with their finances. That getting a pink slip for being late to school meant someone would pour pink liquid on the floor and you had to slip on it. Adults just automatically had their crap together. That quicksand was going to be quite an important factor in my life. A very real danger lurking around every corner. Quite disappointing to find that's not the case.